The city sleeps like a cat in the afternoon, one ear half awake, one paw twitching at dreams. At this hour, just past midnight, my studio holds a quiet, more honest than any daylight, wool-felt walls, a ceiling webbed with baffles, a red lamp the size of an apple breathing a patient glow. I stand very still in the middle of the floor with my arms loose at my sides, and I listen to nothing. Room tone isn't silence. It's the shy orchestra that plays when no one thinks to clap, the low throb of pipes several floors below, the far elevator's throat clearing, the thin hiss from the streetlight sneaking through the seal of the door. I keep a jar of it on every project, labeled with date and time like jam. Directors always forget how loud a quiet room can be, until I pour it in. My notebook for tonight has 3 lines. 1. Footsteps. City Museum marble, conversational pace. 2. Footsteps. Raincoat on varnished wood, hesitant, then sure. 3 footsteps. Soft forgiveness. That last one is a dare to myself. I don't know yet what forgiveness sounds like. Maybe it's the weight you stop carrying. Maybe it's the weight you choose to keep. I switch on the ribbon mic, the old one that keeps its secrets even when the world doesn't. A metronome ticks under my breath. I try different soles. Rubber, sneaker, stacked heel, leather boot. I angle the mic low and off axis. Sweep a windscreen. Place a boundary mic on the floor to capture reflections like rainbows you can hear. Each pass, I walk a path I draw in chalk, a meandering S, for someone not late but not early, a straight line, for someone who knows. When I play it back, the heel clicks sound like punctuation, too firm, too decisive. The sneaker hush sounds like apology, too late, too thin. The leather boot has promise. If I loosen my ankle and imagine a person carrying a bouquet they haven't decided to give. I stop the recording. The red lamp breathes. The city purrs. Next door, someone taps metal on wood. The shoemaker must be working late again. The first time I met him, or not met him, was a week ago, when a small box of leather scraps appeared outside my door. Calfskin in smoke gray, a sliver of blue like twilight. No note, just the faint smell of cedar. I returned the box with a short thank you, and a clip of footsteps recorded on antique parquet. The clip came back the next day with a pair of handmade felt heel pads tucked inside, and 3 words in a tidy hand. Try these, neighbor. I did. The pads turned the floor to velvet. The metal tapping stops. Then a pause long enough to hear my own breath. Then a knock on the shared wall, too short, one long, not loud, uncertain, like someone wondering whether a door can be a conversation. I tap back, matching the rhythm. The room smiles. I check my list again. Forgiveness. I pull the ribbon mic closer and lace on the boots I almost sold last year when work went thin and days got thinner. I kept them because they remembered the good floors, sprung maple and dance studios, old libraries that smelled like tea plans and ink. I think of the one sound I never sent to a client. I think of my father's hospital room and how I recorded our last walk together, the slow shuffle he hated, the small steps that taught me the music of staying. I have not listened to that file in 2 years. Tonight, I whisper a hello to it and let it sleep. Forgiveness is not a door you kick open. I start a new track and walk again, toes soft, heels kinder. I imagine I'm late to nothing. I imagine I'm carrying a cup of warm milk and a novel with a library slip in the back. Each step places a little less weight on what hurt me, a little more on what holds me. I roll through the ball of my foot and let the heel land like a comma instead of a period. When I stop, the room keeps singing for a second and then remembers itself. I hit play. The track opens like a window. The footsteps are not loud. They have edges softened by attention. They sound like somebody who will stay for the answer. I label the take soft forgiveness V1 and smile without meaning to. A shape passes my door, a shadow under the sweep. A moment later, a paper slides into my studio, heavy stock, embossed with a shoe last, and a tiny constellation stamped in the corner. A note is clipped to it with a brass pin. If you ever need a different kind of silence, I make that too. L must be Luca. The name painted on the window next door, in gold leaf. Luca Voltaire, bespoke footwear. I barely know his face, dark hair. A posture like a question mark straightening. but I know the way his door opens. No squeak, no protest. I know the way his floor sounds, cloth over wood, a hush like sweeping snow. I consider ignoring the note. It is safe to stay a rumor between neighbors. But the night feels porous, and the work asks for more than my feet can give. I pin the note to my corkboard where distant friends live, then pick up the leather scraps he left the other day. The smoke gray feels cool but not cold. The blue is warmer than it looks. I open my door. The hallway tastes like sawdust and rain. Luca's door is ajar, as if waiting. I knock on the frame. A head lifts from the workbench. His eyes are the color of sidewalks after rain, a gray that remembers every cloud and every patch of sky between. "Hi," I say. I'm the footsteps next door. He smiles in relief, like he's been tying a knot that finally lies flat. "I'm the quiet shoes," he says. "Do you have a moment?" I'm struggling to keep a secret from my own souls. I step inside. The shop is a small cathedral, to slowness lasts, nested like nesting dolls. Spools of thread arranged by evening colors, a lamp with a shade, the exact yellow of butter on warm toast. He gestures to a low platform of oak. "Stand there," he says, softer now. "Walk how you walk when no one is looking." I do. He watches my ankles more than my feet, then the way my shoulders negotiate gravity. He doesn't write anything down. He listens like a person reading in a storm. "I can make you a soul that forgives the floor," he says at last. "But maybe what you want is a floor that forgives you." "What's the difference?" I ask. "With the first, you won't hear what tries to love you back," he says. "With the second you will." I don't know what to do with that sentence, so I borrow time by smiling. "Could we try both?" I'm chasing a sound I can't name. He considers, then nods. "Leave me your boots tonight," he says. "I'll stitch you a shadow." I unlace the boots and feel strangely in my socks, the oak is warm. I walk an experimental loop and hear my life at room tone. Hum of the lamp, distant train apology, the slow breath of a man who thinks before he speaks. On my way out, Luca hands me a small paper bag. Inside, a pair of felt heel pads, softer than the last. "Just in case you need to arrive somewhere without waking the story," he says. Back in my studio, I slip the pads into a pair of flats, and record one more pass. The steps are so quiet they almost vanish, but what remains is everything else in the room. The night, my own heart hitting its marks like a metronome that learned kindness. I layer the track under a museum hall ambience, and smile again. I think of Luca stitching a shadow into my boots, of a floor forgiving me, of the sound of a sentence you want to say twice. When I close the session, I label the project, "The Library of Soft Footsteps," Chapter 1 Room Tone, and beneath it, a private tag, "Start where the quiet is honest." Outside, the city turns on its other ear. Inside, I leave the red lamp breathing, like a lighthouse for someone who walks home by listening. The next morning arrives like spilled milk across the blind, soft, reluctant, honest. I wake to the hum of the city stretching its bones, and a faint sound that doesn't belong. The low creak of leather, the rhythm of someone shaping something with care. It's coming from next door. I make coffee strong enough to remember my name, then set up a small stereo mic by the wall, not to spy, just to record the heartbeat of craft. Every tap and brushstroke has a pulse. Sound tells you more about a person than their voice ever could. Luca's rhythm is patient. Tap, pause, sweep, pause, double tap. He's talking to the leather, not to himself. Between each sequence, he hums a note lower than the morning, a tune with no words but clear direction. I realize it's the same tone I sometimes chase when layering ambience, the human key of stay. When the recording feels full enough, I stop. My studio smells faintly of coffee and warm glue. I listen to the playback with my eyes closed and find myself smiling at the moment he sneezes softly, then laughs to himself. I keep that in the take. At noon, a gentle knock. I open the door and the world smells of cedar, thread wax, and sunlight filtered through cotton. Luca stands there holding my boots. Now darker, softer, the stitching so precise it looks like thought turned tangible. "I stitched the shadow," he says. He hands me a small paper envelope to. Inside is a swatch of dark gray felt, with 2 holes punched neatly through it, tied with waxed thread. Your soles wanted to breathe differently, he explains. This layer listens better. I laugh quietly. Do shoes really listen? Everything that carries you has ears, he replies. We just step too loudly to hear their answers. He looks around my studio, the microphones, the acoustic panels, the floating shelves stacked with reels. You keep memories of sound, he says, almost to himself. I try to build silence that doesn't forget. For a moment, we just stand there in the middle of the shared hallway, half in his world of touch, half in mine of listening. Then he gestures toward the floor. Try them. I slip on the boots. They fit like a confession you didn't know you were ready to make. When I take a step, there's no thud, no scrape, just the soft pressure of being present. It's like walking on memory foam made of apologies, I say before I can stop myself. He smiles. Good. They remember, but they don't accuse. That line stays with me long after he leaves. Later, I open a new session on my recorder. Title, Souls and Souls. The red light glows like a heartbeat waiting to sink. I walk across the room again, this time letting the new souls translate my thoughts into texture. The sound is almost human. Each step releases a sigh, a whisper, a kind of hush that seems to carry both question and comfort. I close my eyes and imagine Luca's workshop across the wall, his steady breathing, the creak of wood as he leans forward. I layer in faint strings, nothing dramatic, just a cello bow drawn slowly, like morning light over skin. The mix feels tender, shy, alive. Halfway through, I hear another sound, not from my studio, but through the vent. A faint melody, played on something small and wooden. I lower the gain and listen closer. It's a harmonica, clumsy but sweet, sketching out the shape of a lullaby. Luca again. He's learning how to fill his own silence. Without thinking, I take a handheld recorder and step into the hallway. I press record and walk toward his door. I don't knock this time. I just let the sound seep through, a duet written by coincidence. When the melody ends, I whisper into my mic, "Thank you, neighbor." Maybe he'll never hear it, but the waveform will. Back inside, I save the file and sit cross-legged on the floor. The boots are by my side, faintly shining in the lamplight. I wonder if he knows he's been teaching me how to listen with my feet. For the first time in months, I don't feel like filling every quiet with words. The silence tonight doesn't ache, it waits. And somewhere behind the wall, I imagine Luca smiling too, as if the quiet between us had just learned a new language. The first day of autumn comes quietly, with the smell of wet stone and cinnamon bread from the cafe downstairs. The air has the kind of hush that makes even traffic sound polite. I'm editing a museum project when a small tap echoes from my door, too short, one long. Our code. I open it to find Luca standing there, carrying a small wooden crate. Inside are several pairs of shoes, none quite the same, different soles, leathers, even rhythms. I thought, he says, maybe you'd help me find their voices. He sets the crate down like it holds something alive. They're all prototypes. Each sole is meant to speak differently depending on who wears it. I smile. And you want me to be the translator? Exactly. You make silence sing. I make silence walk. We decide to test them in the old city, where cobblestones have memory. I bring 2 recorders, one clipped near my chest, one hidden in my sleeve to catch the street's breath. Luca carries a small notebook, as if footsteps could be spelled out. The morning light slips between buildings. Like honey, we start walking. His new shoes make almost no sound, only a soft pulse that blends with the cooing pigeons and the bell tower's slow heartbeat. I record everything, the shuffle of tourists, a paper bag sighing open, a child's laughter ricocheting off stone. But under it all runs our rhythm to walkers' matching pace without agreement, yet perfectly aligned. We stop in front of a small fountain. The water makes tiny vowels as it falls. Luca looks at me. What does this sound like to you? Forgiveness, I say again, without thinking. The kind that doesn't need to be spoken. He nods. Then that's what I'll name the pair you're wearing. We move again, through narrow alleys, across the bridge. A musician plays violin near the bookshop, bow trembling in sunlight. I record a few bars and whisper into the mic, ambient layer for chapter 3. Luca buys 2 cups of tea from a cart, one for me, one for the musician. You tip with warmth, I tell him. He shrugs. It returns interest. We walk on until we reach the public library, its marble steps, worn thin by decades of readers. I tell him this is my favorite place to record footsteps. Inside, the air is heavier, scented with ink and patience. The librarian waves. She knows me by my microphones. We find an aisle near the back, between travel and poetry. Walk here, I whisper. He does. The soles sigh against the floor, soft, deliberate, reverent. Each step lands like the turning of a page. I follow him, keeping just enough distance that our sounds braid but never collide. Together, we write a conversation made of rhythm and restraint. When we finish, I play it back through my headphones. Luca listens too, leaning close, head bowed slightly as if in prayer. It sounds, he says quietly, like 2 people finding the same street in different cities. That line lodges somewhere in my chest. May I use it? I ask. He smiles. It's yours. Just spell it in sound. As we leave, the librarian gives us a knowing look, the kind given to people who have found what they weren't looking for. Outside, golden leaves begin to fall. The city exhales. We walk home slower than before, as if the world had adjusted its metronome to our pace. That night I mix the recordings. The footsteps are gentle but full of intent. The violin hums like a thread of sunlight. The fountain whispers through everything. I name the final track City, at walking speed. Before I sleep, I send the file to Luca with a note. Every silence you made has a heartbeat now. He replies a minute later. Then maybe I've been making hearts all along. And somehow, that feels exactly right. The week after our walk, the city turns restless again. Construction cranes start humming at dawn, buses sigh heavier than before, and even the pigeons argue on the roof. Inside my studio, nothing works the way it should. The monitors crackle. The preamp hums. Every track I touch sounds brittle, as if the silence itself had caught a fever. I try to re-record my footsteps, but the sound is wrong, flat, impatient, hollow. I stop, breathe, try again. Still wrong. My chest feels tight. It's the kind of day when creativity collapses under its own echo. By evening, I give up and sit on the floor. The red lamp glows faintly, like an ember losing memory. I close my eyes and listen to the static. It almost sounds like rain that forgot how to fall. A soft knock interrupts one short, one long, one short. Different from before. Not our usual code. I open the door. Luca stands there, hair tousled, sleeves rolled up, holding a thermos and 2 paper cups. Emergency tea, he says simply. You looked like someone who's been fighting ghosts. I laugh, but my voice catches. Technical ghosts. He looks past me into the studio, where cables coil like restless snakes. May I? I nod. He steps inside, placing the thermos on the console, eyes scanning the space the way a shoemaker studies, creases in leather. What are you listening for? He asks. I don't know anymore, I admit. Every sound feels too loud, even the quiet ones. He sits cross-legged beside me on the floor. Then maybe the problem isn't the sound. Maybe it's that you stopped hearing what's underneath it. He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out something smaller, wooden tuning fork, worn smooth. It's not for instruments, he says. It's for people. He strikes it gently against his palm. The note is low, tender, almost invisible. I can feel it more than hear it. This was my brother's, he continues. He said every person has a frequency where they stop pretending. I hold out my hand. Can I? He nods. I strike the fork again and press it against the side of my neck. The vibration hums through my skin, slow and steady. It feels like being reminded of something I forgot to forgive. Luca watches me quietly. That's your tone, he says. Not the world's. For a long while, we sit without talking. The hum fades, replaced by the real silence, the one that doesn't demand performance. Then he says, try recording that. I blink. Recording what? This moment. No tricks. No editing. Just this. I hesitate, then reach for my portable recorder. I place it between us, press record, and let the air breathe. There's the faint hiss of city light, the rhythm of our breathing, a kettle cooling in the distance. His sleeve brushes the floor like a quiet wave. After a minute, I stop the recording and play it back. The sound is imperfect, but true. It's silence with fingerprints. He smiles. See? The world still works. For the first time all day, my shoulders drop. I laugh softly. You just fixed my static with tea and metaphysics. He shrugs. Every repair begins with listening. I walk him to the door. Before leaving, he turns back and says, "If you ever want to test silence again, my shop's open late." When he's gone, I sit by the console and replay the clip. It's short, barely a minute, but inside, it is everything I needed to remember. Breath, warmth, proof that even quiet can have texture. I save the file as silencetest.wav and tag it, for nights when noise wins. Before sleep, I place the tuning fork on my desk, beside the red lamp. Its wooden handle carries a small engraving I hadn't noticed before. 2 initials, intertwined like threads, LV. I touch it gently. The metal is cool, the wood warm. And somewhere deep inside me, the room hums again steady, forgiving, alive. Autumn deepens. The air smells of chestnuts and first rain, and the evenings arrive earlier, folding the city into amber. Luca appears at my door one afternoon with a strange gleam in his eyes, and a rolled-up sheet of craft paper under his arm. "I need a favor," he says, smiling like someone hiding fireworks in his pocket. He unrolls the paper across my console. It's a floor plan, long, narrow, marked with dotted lines and small symbols. "A runway," he explains. "But quiet. For a community event next week. They're raising funds for the local hearing center. I want to build shoes that sound like empathy." The phrase catches me off guard. Empathy has a sound, he nods. Of course. It's what's left after someone stops speaking. I stare at the plan. He's divided the walkway into sections labeled sand, velvet, paper, wood. Each texture, he says, will sing differently when walked upon. I want your microphones to listen to them all. My heart does that small flutter reserved for impossible ideas that somehow feel right. "You're asking me to mix a conversation between footsteps and feelings," he grins. "Exactly. Think of it as translating kindness." So we spend the next week in his workshop. I record every sound, the hiss of glue, the whisper of thread through leather, the rhythmic breath of sewing machines. Each shoe he crafts carries a different intention. Comfort, courage, forgiveness, beginning. At night, he tests them, walking small loops around the studio while I listen through my headphones. Some shoes sigh, some hum. One pair creaks like an old book opening to the right page. On the morning of the event, the hall smells of wood polish and anticipation. Volunteers set up soft lights along the floor. I run cables like vines, hiding them beneath fabric. Luca moves with calm purpose, arranging his creations on a long wooden bench. The audience is small but warm artists, students, a few older couples. A hush settles even before we start. When the first walker steps onto the runway, there's no music, only breath. The shoes make faint patterns, whisper, pause, glide. Each footstep feels like a sentence written directly onto air. I blend live sounds through my console, layering reverb so each step lingers like memory. In the glow of the lights, I see Luca standing near the end of the runway, arms folded, eyes shining. Then it's my turn. He hands me a pair smoke gray leather with soft blue stitching, the same colors as that first box of scraps he left by my door. "Go on," he murmurs. "Let the floor forgive you." The shoes fit perfectly. When I walk, they make no sound at first, only warmth, only presence. Then, faintly, the microphones catch something. A hush that isn't silence. A low thrum like the sea holding its breath. The audience closes their eyes. Someone sighs. Someone smiles. I reach the end of the runway, turn, and see Luca watching me as if the world finally made sense in frequencies instead of words. When the show ends, applause feels almost intrusive. Still, it comes gentle, careful, like rain landing on water. Later, when everyone has gone, we sit among cables and empty teacups, the air still humming. You know, I say softly, you just made people listen to Quiet. He chuckles. Then, we've done our job. I look at him the way his hands rest. The small scar near his thumb from too many needles. The faint shimmer of varnish on his skin. Do you ever get tired of fixing what's meant to break? He shakes his head. Everything breaks. I just give it another way to hold. Outside, the city lights flicker to life. The hall is empty now, except for our echo. Before leaving, he points to the floor where I walked. That sound you made, keep it. It was the truest thing I've ever heard. I nod, unable to speak. Back in my studio that night, I review the recording. The footsteps bloom softly in my headphones, neither loud nor faint, but perfectly human. I name the final mix the Quiet Runway. Under notes, I type. Every kindness begins with the sound of someone approaching gently. Before shutting down, I glance at the tuning fork on my desk. It vibrates faintly, though no one has touched it. Maybe, I think, some silences know how to keep walking on their own. Winter creeps in quietly, in the thin silver air that smells of smoke and something old. The nights arrive early now. Even my microphones seem to listen slower. I haven't seen Luca for a few days, he said. He had orders to finish before the snow. But every morning, outside my door, there's a faint trace of sawdust, and once, a folded note. Do not forget to rest the quiet, too. Tonight, I'm editing our recordings for the community archive. 6 sessions, room tone, souls and souls, city at walking speed, silence test, the Quiet Runway, and one unnamed track I don't remember recording. Curious, I open it. The waveform begins with nothing, then slowly blooms into the sound of 2 people breathing, followed by a single soft step, mine, I think, and then another, heavier step. The 2 patterns merge, overlapping until they sound like one person walking home. I don't remember pressing record, but I don't stop listening. The track ends with the faint chime of the workshop bell. Then Luca's voice, quiet, unguarded. Every shoe wants to find its floor. Every heart, its echo. My throat tightens. Sometimes words only live once, but sound remembers. A knock breaks my thoughts. I open the door, and there he is, coat dusted with snow. A small box in his hands tied with blue string. Late delivery, he says, smiling. My last order of the year. Inside the box are a pair of shoes. Not new, but familiar. My first pair, now retuned, reshaped, their soles engraved with something delicate. I lift one and read the tiny line burned into the leather. Homeward. They've walked enough to learn where they belong, Luca says softly. I look up at him, and for a moment the space between us feels like a sound still forming, a note held just before release. Walk with me, he asks. We step out into the snow. The city is half asleep, streetlights wearing halos, footprints crisp and temporary. The shoes are warm, they hum faintly with each step. Beside me, Luca's boots answer in quiet rhythm. We walk with no destination, just following the pulse of the world beneath our feet. At the bridge, the river glints like a reel of magnetic tape. I take out my handheld recorder, press record, and let the world speak for itself. No dialogue, only the sound of 2 people existing gently. Later, when we turn back, Luca says, "You always record, even when it's already perfect." I smile, because perfect things disappear. He nods, snow collecting in his hair. Then promise me, if one day you record silence again, you'll leave a little space for me inside it. I already have, I whisper. We walk the rest of the way in wordless understanding, our steps soft as sleep. When we reach the corner where our doors divide, I press stop on the recorder. The red light fades. For a moment, neither of us moves. Then Luca leans forward, his breath warm in the winter air. "Good night, footsteps," he says. "Good night, quiet shoes," I reply. He smiles, and the world feels lighter by one sound, the closing of a door, gentle, final, like the punctuation mark of peace. Back inside, I transfer the last file. I name it simply, Homeward.wav. Under notes, I type, "The end of every path is not silence. It's the sound of someone waiting with the light still on." Then I turn off the lamp. The room hums once more steady, calm, alive. And the quiet, at last, feels like home.